Steven Spielberg was only 26 when he filmed Jaws. On July 15, 1974, a photographer captured something that Universal Pictures tried to hide for decades. The photo shows what really happened during the beach attack scene. During test screening, 13 viewers fainted and 2 started vomiting. The studio panicked and buried the footage, but one crew member kept the evidence. When it surfaced in 2018, film experts couldn't believe their eyes. The mechanical shark wasn't the problem. What they filmed that day was too real for audiences. It all started by accident. In 1973, Richard Zanuck and David Brown, 2 Hollywood producers, found a story that would change everything. Brown picked up a copy of Cosmopolitan magazine, which his wife Helen edited. Inside, a short card described an unpublished novel called Jaws. The final line said, "Might make a good movie." That small line was enough. Brown shared it with Zanuck. They both read the manuscript in one night. The next morning, they couldn't stop talking about it. They thought it was the most exciting story they had ever read. Without wasting time, they decided to buy the rights. Later, Brown admitted they moved too fast. If they had read the book a second time, they might have realized how hard it would be to turn it into a film. But by then, it was too late. They were all in. Universal Pictures agreed to back them. The studio paid $175,000 for the rights. Even before the book came out, that's over $1.2 million in today's money. It was a huge risk. All they had was a promising story and 2 excited producers. But the timing worked. When the book was published in February 1974, it became a massive hit. The hardback stayed on bestseller lists for 44 weeks. The paperback sold millions. If Universal had waited, they would have faced a bidding war. Instead, they got it cheap. Now came the harder part, finding the right director. Steven Spielberg had just finished The Sugarland Express. He was young, only 26, and already under contract, but he didn't want to do Jaws. He worried it would trap him. A few years earlier, he made Duel, a movie about a man being hunted by a truck, another Predator story. He feared people would label him the shark guy. He tried to leave. He even looked at other films. One was called Lucky Lady, but Universal wouldn't let him go. He was still under contract, and they knew what he could do, so they told him to stay, and he did. Casting was a mess. Spielberg wanted Jon Voight to play Hooper, but in the end, Richard Dreyfuss took the role. On January 3, 1974, he called Spielberg out of the blue. He wasn't happy with his own work in The Apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz and decided to jump on board. Filming was just 4 months away. For Quint, Spielberg wanted Lee Marvin or Sterling Hayden. Both said no. That's how Robert Shaw got the role. He nailed it. But on set, he clashed with Dreyfuss constantly. Shaw drank too much. Dreyfuss was cocky. They annoyed each other. Still, their real-life tension added something special to their scenes. Everything felt rushed. Universal wanted to ride the wave of the book's success. They pushed the film forward. Spielberg started shooting on May 2, 1974. The script wasn't finished. The mechanical sharks didn't work. The budget exploded, climbing from $3.5 million to $9 million. The schedule stretched from 55 days to 159. Spielberg, still only 26, felt the pressure. He still feared being boxed in. He wanted out. But producer David Brown talked him down. He told Spielberg that if he finished Jaws, he could make anything after. That promise kept him going. Spielberg didn't just want fear. He wanted laughs, too. He didn't see Jaws as a pure horror film. He didn't want it to be a grim hunt in the sea. He wanted real people, real tension, and moments of humor. To help with that, he called Carl Gottlieb. Gottlieb was a comedy writer who had worked on The Odd Couple. On April 3, 1974, Spielberg sent him the script. Gottlieb wrote back with 3 pages of suggestions. Spielberg loved it. He showed the notes to the producers. A few days later, the 4 of them met at the Hotel Bel Air. By the next week, Gottlieb was flying to Boston with Spielberg. He was supposed to help cast locals, but Spielberg had a bigger plan. He needed help fixing the script. Gottlieb got to work fast. He focused on character. He made them feel human. One of his most famous touches came during a dinner scene. Brody, Hooper, and Quint start comparing scars. That moment came out of one of Gottlieb's late-night dinners with the cast. They improvised it. The shark kept breaking down. It barely worked. So the film leaned harder on the actors. Their dialogue carried the scenes. The line, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," wasn't even in the script. It was made up on the spot, but it became legendary. Gottlieb's role grew quickly. He was hired for a 1-week rewrite starting April 27th. He stayed for 9 weeks. Each night, he had dinner with Spielberg and the cast. They talked about what scenes to shoot next. Ideas came out of those meals. Lines were written on the fly. One big change was cutting the affair from the book. In the novel, Brody's wife has a fling with Hooper, but when Gottlieb saw the actors together, he knew it wouldn't work. He said, "We're not going to show her cuckolding Brody with this dweeb," so the affair was gone. He also rewrote Hooper. He shaped the character around Richard Dreyfuss. In some ways, Hooper became a stand-in for Spielberg himself, a curious, smart, slightly awkward outsider. That change gave the film more heart. On May 2nd, 1974, a young and determined Steven Spielberg stood at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean. He had only directed one feature film before, but this time he had something bigger in mind. Spielberg made a bold call. He chose to film Jaws out at sea instead of inside a studio tank. Everyone warned him not to. Studios hated the idea, but Spielberg believed real water, real skies, and real movement were the only way to make it feel alive. The team picked Martha's Vineyard as their battleground. It was calm and beautiful on the surface, but a nightmare to shoot in. To make the mechanical shark work, they needed a spot deep enough for it to swim, but shallow enough to anchor equipment. They settled on a bizarre patch, 10 to 12 miles offshore, that was only 30 feet deep. Spielberg later called it the worst place in the world to shoot a movie. Nature did not care about their schedule. The sea changed its mood by the hour. One moment, they were ready to roll. The next, the current would shift and push the boats out of alignment. Crews had to stop everything and reset the entire setup. By then, the sun had moved. Shots were ruined. Some days they got just 2 usable takes. The cast and crew were miserable. The sun burned their skin. The rocking waves made them sick. Everyone was exhausted. And then there were the locals. At first, they were excited to see Hollywood in town. But as the delays stretched on, their patience ran dry. One night, someone even threw fish guts at Spielberg's rented house. Then came the sharks, not real ones, the mechanical ones, nicknamed Bruce after Spielberg's lawyer. Production designer Joe Alves built 3 of them, one for swimming on a track, 2 others to film from different sides. They were huge, each about 25 feet long. Spielberg had hoped they'd save the movie. Instead, they nearly sunk it. The very first time they lowered one into the ocean, it sank straight to the bottom. Divers had to fish it out. From there, things only got worse. Salt water corroded the machinery. Rubber skins soaked up water and warped. Movements became jerky and weird. One day, the shark looked menacing. The next, it looked like a kid's broken toy. Spielberg was furious. At one point, he shouted, "I'd like to kill this shark." The crew spent hours repairing the beasts. Some days, they couldn't shoot anything at all. Pieces kept falling off. Sometimes entire sharks disappeared below the waves and had to be pulled back up by divers. Everyone started to panic. The budget was exploding. So was the schedule. The film was supposed to cost $3.5 million and finish in 55 days. That was the plan. 2 months in, they were already $2 million over. They were 49 days late. Shooting didn't stop until October 6th. That was day 159. The final budget landed somewhere between $9 and $12 million. Spielberg thought his career was over. Studio executives were terrified. Crew members started mocking the whole production. Some wore T-shirts that said, "Shark 1, Spielberg 0." Others called the movie flaws. Spielberg was so scared of being thrown into the ocean on the final day that he snuck off set and flew back to LA early. But there was another battle happening on the boat. Actor Robert Shaw, who played Quint, didn't get along with Richard Dreyfuss, who played Hooper. Shaw was old school, a serious method actor. Dreyfuss was younger, more casual, and full of nerves. Shaw would insult him constantly, calling him names and mocking his performance. Once, he grabbed Dreyfuss by the throat. Another time, he shot a fire extinguisher at him. Shaw also drank heavily. One night, He got too drunk to film the big USS Indianapolis speech. He begged for another try the next day. Spielberg gave it to him. That time, Shaw nailed it in one perfect take. Dreyfuss wasn't doing much better. He had panic attacks and felt trapped. He worried the movie would flop and his career would end. Roy Scheider, who played Brody, tried to stay neutral, but the tension affected everyone. Spielberg later said Jaws was the hardest shoot of his life. Then, something strange happened. Because the shark barely worked, Spielberg had to get creative. He stopped showing it. Instead, he hinted at it. He used underwater shots from the shark's point of view. He showed yellow barrels skimming the surface. He let the audience hear it before they ever saw it. That's where John Williams stepped in. Williams created a simple two-note theme, just E and F, repeating over and over. When Spielberg first heard it, he laughed. He thought it was a joke, but Williams explained it was meant to feel primal, like a pulse in the water. He recorded 47 versions of that theme, each one designed to control how scared the audience would feel. Sometimes it was slow and quiet. Other times, it pounded fast and loud. The shark only appears on screen for about 4 minutes, but that's all it needed. The mystery made it terrifying. When it finally burst out of the water near the end, it was shocking. The buildup had worked. The broken machines forced Spielberg to make something smarter. Then, there were a few scenes. The original Alex Kintner death scene in Jaws was supposed to be unforgettable. It was meant to be terrifying, brutal, and painfully realistic. On July 15, 1974, the crew gathered at Katama Bay in Martha's Vineyard to film what they thought would be the most shocking moment in the movie. The scene would show a great white shark attacking a young boy on a raft in full gory detail. But what they shot that day was so intense, it never made it into the final cut. 11-year-old Jeffrey Voorhees played Alex Kintner. In the original plan, he was floating calmly on a yellow raft, completely unaware of the danger right beneath him. Suddenly, the massive mechanical shark, built to be 25 feet long and weighing over 1.5 tons, would rise out of the water and lunge toward him. The shark was called Bruce, and it needed a crew of 15 people to operate it. They had designed it to leap with such power that it would soak the camera crew with seawater every time it burst from the bay. The raft was supposed to be crushed in the shark's mouth, with Alex still on it. Bruce would thrash violently from side to side, throwing gallons of blood into the water. The crew had prepared an entire system of pressurized blood packs that would explode on cue, sending red liquid high into the air. The sea would turn crimson. To make it even more disturbing, they had built a lifelike dummy of Alex. It had movable limbs, a torso filled with fake organs, and was designed to tear apart like a real body. Bruce was programmed to rip through it. Limbs would separate, flesh would float, organs would bob to the surface. The screams would be sharp and horrifying. And the sound team made it worse with layers of cracking bones and ripping tissue. It was pure nightmare fuel. One photo captured this moment before the carnage. It wasn't released for decades. In 2018, a rare black and white image taken by set photographer Cal Accord surfaced. It was dated July 15, 1974. At exactly 2:37 p.m., the image shows Bruce with his jaws wide open, just inches from the dummy on the raft. The shark's head fills the frame, and the dummy's small figure seems frozen in terror. Even without color, the photo looked terrifying. The shark's rough skin, cold, glassy eyes, and endless rows of teeth were clear. The dummy's arms stretched out, as if bracing for death. It was haunting. The photo came from the private stash of a crew member who worked on the second unit. It was found years later, tucked in a box of forgotten memorabilia. Film experts immediately recognized its importance. It wasn't just a production photo. It was a glimpse at the most graphic idea Spielberg never used. The photo captured the full detail of Bruce, the machine that had caused chaos during the shoot. It proved how far the special effects team had gone. Bob Matty and his crew had spent months perfecting that monster. They wanted it to shock people, and it did. But the scene never made it to theaters. On April 26, 1975, at a test screening in Dallas, Texas, The audience couldn't handle it. 13 people fainted. 2 vomited in the lobby. Some ran out. It was too much. The scene was too intense for a PG rating. The MPAA said it would have to be rated R if left in. That would limit ticket sales. Universal didn't want that. They told Spielberg to cut it. Spielberg agreed. He later said that the imagination could scare people more than blood ever could. He believed that leaving things unseen made them more terrifying. He didn't want to show everything right away. He wanted the audience to feel the shark before they saw it, but not everyone agreed. Bob Matty, who built Bruce and spent weeks preparing the original scene, was frustrated. He felt his team's best work had been hidden. He believed it showed the true horror of a shark attack, and he wasn't wrong. The mechanical shark looked real. It moved like a beast. It tore through its prey like it meant it. Spielberg made another choice that sealed the scene's fate. He didn't want to reveal the shark so early in the movie. He wanted to keep it hidden as long as possible. That made the suspense build. It also helped cover up Bruce's technical flaws. The shark often broke down. It caused long delays and expensive repairs. By cutting its early appearance, Spielberg made sure that when Bruce finally showed up, it hit hard. The version we see in the final cut is very different. It relies on reactions. It shows panic. It shows the water turning red, but it doesn't show the attack. That choice worked. People still say it's one of the scariest moments in film history, not because of what they saw, but because of what they imagined. Moreover, there was an estuary scene. Everything felt calm in the pond. Kids were sailing little boats. Chief Brody's son, Michael, was out there too. The water was still. Nothing seemed dangerous. Then it happened. Out of nowhere, a 25-foot great white shark slipped into the estuary. This place was supposed to be safe. It wasn't the open ocean. It wasn't the main beach. It was a quiet corner. That made what followed even worse. Boats flipped. Kids screamed. The water exploded with panic. Spielberg didn't need darkness this time. The sun was out. Everyone could see what was happening. That made it feel real. That made it terrifying. The camera switched between wide shots and close-ups. You saw the whole estuary. Then you saw the fear on faces. You saw helpless people trying to run in the water. It was slow, messy, and chaotic. John Williams's music started low. Then it grew louder. The fear built up, second by second. Then came the shark. It was fast, massive. For the first time in the whole movie, the audience saw more than just a fin. There was a glimpse of the full body, only for a moment, but it was enough. Spielberg waited over an hour to show it. That delay made the moment explode with power. The less he showed, the scarier it got. And even in this scene, most of the shark stayed hidden. The imagination did the rest. This scene was shot at Joseph Sylvia State Beach in Martha's Vineyard. Tourists still visit it. That makes the fears stick even more. It's real water, a real place. You could go there today. Originally, Spielberg had more planned. Right after the estuary chaos, there was another attack. It was filmed, then cut. The scene was brutal. A man in a paddle boat saw the kids in trouble. He paddled toward them, trying to help. That decision cost him his life. Stuntman Ted Grossman played the man. It was filmed on August 26, 1974. The shark rose from below, slammed into the boat, and took the man in its mouth. His body hung out like a figure on the front of a ship. Spielberg used that exact phrase. It got worse. The man didn't die right away. He was conscious. The shark dragged him through the water as he vomited blood. The water turned red. The camera stayed on him for 10 seconds. Michael Brody watched the whole thing from just feet away. Spielberg shot the whole thing. The scene was horrifying. Even for Spielberg, it was too much. He cut it. It didn't match the rest of the film. The tone was all wrong. Jaws built fear slowly. This scene hit like a hammer. Spielberg wanted tension, not shock for shock's sake. But the footage exists, and for many fans, it's become a legend. When Universal Pictures took on Jaws, they didn't just make a movie, they changed the game. They spent $1.8 million on marketing, which was unheard of in 1975. Back then, summer wasn't considered a hot time for movies, but Universal saw something big coming. The man behind the film's promotion, Andrew Quain, led a bold campaign. 3 nights before the film came out, TV spots aired during primetime shows. Each ad showed a shark rising from the deep toward a woman swimming above. Underneath it all, John Williams's haunting music played. Those ads ran everywhere. It was a full-force blitz. No film had ever been pushed that hard on television, they didn't stop there. On June 20th, 1975, Jaws opened in 464 theaters across America on the same day. That wide release was a new idea. Before that, films rolled out slowly, city by city. But this time, they made it feel like a national event. And it worked. The film made $7 million just in its opening weekend. For 1975, that was enormous. Merchandise flooded the market. There were shark tooth necklaces, t-shirts, and beach towels. Universal even teamed up with Bantam Books to re-release Peter Benchley's novel with the movie cover. That book alone sold millions of copies. This kind of all-out push became the rule for blockbusters after Jaws. Then came the box office explosion. In just 78 days, Jaws broke the record set by The Godfather. It reached $260 million in the United States. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $1.52 billion today. That's more than what Barbie or Top Gun Maverick made in recent years. It was the first film ever to hit $100 million in rentals, which means the studio's own cut, and it did that in only 59 days. Outside the US, the film kept breaking records. It eventually pulled in over $470 million worldwide. The stock of MCA, Universal's parent company, jumped 22% in 1 month. The tie-in book sold over 5 million copies. This wasn't just a hit. It was a financial earthquake. Critics loved it too. Roger Ebert gave it 4 stars. He called it a terrifying thriller with real characters. The film got 4 Oscar nominations and won 3: Best Film Editing, Best Original Score, and Best Sound. In 2007, the American Film Institute ranked it 48th among the 100 greatest American films. But Jaws changed more than just box office records. It created the idea of the summer blockbuster. Before 1975, studios saved their biggest films for the winter. That changed overnight. Big-budget summer movies became the new gold rush. Studios also started copying the release strategy. They realized that opening big in hundreds of theaters while hitting TV hard could drive huge early profits. That's how opening weekends became the most important part of a film's run. Steven Spielberg didn't stop there. After Jaws, he made a much riskier film, Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was about aliens and human wonder. Columbia Pictures was nervous. The budget had ballooned to $19.4 million. But when the film came out in 1977, it made over $288 million worldwide. It wasn't just the story that stood out. Special effects cost $3.3 million, almost a fifth of the whole budget. The mothership scene at the end pushed effects beyond what anyone had done before CGI, and the 5-note musical tune from the aliens became a part of pop culture forever. Back on the human side, the cast of Jaws saw their lives change too. Roy Scheider, who played Chief Brody, became a star. In 1976, he appeared in Marathon Man with Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier. Then, in 1979, he starred in All That Jazz. That role earned him an Oscar nomination for Best Actor. The film made $37 million and became a classic. Scheider returned for Jaws 2 in 1978. It wasn't as praised, but it still pulled in $208 million worldwide. That was the last time he played Brody. He passed on the next sequels. In the 1980s, he stayed busy. He acted in the sci-fi sequel 2010, The Year We Make Contact, and then in the noir thriller 52 Pickup. In 1993, he starred in the underwater TV show Sequest DSV as Captain Nathan Bridger. It ran for 3 seasons and gave him a strong presence on television. Across his life, Scheider acted in more than 60 films and many TV roles. He never let Jaws define him. He kept pushing into new genres, new roles, and new challenges. Richard Dreyfuss, who played Hooper, had a rise just as big. In 1977, he starred in The Goodbye Girl. He won Best Actor at the Oscars. He was 30 years and 125 days old, the youngest ever to win that award at the time. He followed that up with powerful performances. In 1981, he starred in Whose Life Is It Anyway?, about a paralyzed artist who wanted to end his life. It made $27 million and earned him another Golden Globe nomination. In 1986, he appeared in Stand By Me as the adult narrator. His screen time was short, but his voice gave the movie its heart. It grossed $52 million and got an Oscar nomination for the screenplay. In 1989, Dreyfuss reunited with Spielberg for the film Always. It made $74 million worldwide. Then in 1991, he starred in the hit comedy What About Bob, opposite Bill Murray. That one made over $63 million. In 1995, he got another Oscar nomination for Mr. Holland's Opus. That film made $106 million and confirmed Dreyfuss's place among Hollywood's best. Over his career, he racked up 17 wins and 26 nominations across various awards. He acted in over 90 films and TV shows. He moved between comedy and drama with ease, proving time and again that he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. Robert Shaw, who played Quint, had a shorter path. But in just a few years after Jaws, he left behind a trail of memorable roles. In 1976, he played the Sheriff of Nottingham in Robin and Marian with Sean Connery and Audrey Hepburn. It made $8.5 million and earned praise for its mature storytelling. Shaw's take on the villain was dark and layered. In 1977, he starred in two big films. The first was Black Sunday, where he played a Mossad agent stopping a terrorist attack at the Super Bowl. It grossed $15.8 million. The second was The Deep, based on a book by Peter Benchley. Shaw played a treasure hunter in Bermuda. The movie earned $47 million and kept him in the spotlight of underwater thrillers. His final completed film was Force 10 from Navarone in 1978, a war sequel that brought in $7.1 million. Just months later, Shaw died of a heart attack while driving in Ireland. He was 51. He had been filming Avalanche Express at the time. The movie was finished using stand-ins and voice dubbing, but the final result disappointed. Even in his final years, Shaw's power on screen was undeniable. His role in Jaws still stands as one of the most iconic in film history. His death left a hole in cinema that never really closed. Despite the challenges on set, the Jaws cast built lasting friendships. Roy Scheider and Richard Dreyfuss stayed close. Dreyfuss once said they had dinner together every month for years. When Scheider passed away in 2008, Dreyfuss gave a touching eulogy. Over the years, the cast came together for anniversaries and special events. In 2005, they gathered on Martha's Vineyard for the 30th anniversary. Over 5,000 fans came to watch the film again, where it had been shot. In 2012, they met again for the Blu-ray release. Dreyfuss joked that he had thought the film would be a disaster when he first read the script, but it wasn't. Jaws wasn't just a hit. It was a moment in history, and for everyone involved, it changed their lives forever.